Well, I interviewed a guy called Eric King, and Eric is based in New Zealand, and he's a founder and entrepreneur and personal trainer for an organisation called Ultimate Fitness and Stability Guru. And his mission is really to help conscious, ambitious leaders prime and amplify their energy by helping them experience the power of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual stability. Great guy, and had a great interview or great discussion with him around different things. And he referred about the desk jockey. You know who you are. You're the one that's sitting at your desk all day, and we tend to be sort of finding things that go a little bit interesting when we do spend all our time at the desk all day. He's actually saying that sitting down is the new smoking. And yeah, tune in to see what he says about that. That's pretty cool stuff. Now, leaders are always first one in and the last one out. And I don't know about you, but over my career and everything I do, I always make sure I'm there early and I'm the last one to leave. And the reason I do that is because I want to make sure things are set up and things are going well, but also I want to be there to greet people. And then on the other side, I want to make sure that everything's done and that we're all good, and then we can move forward, because it's all about giving other people an experience. And he also talked about a leader that can hold space is going to be really key going forward. And holding space is a really cool concept. And so we talked about that as well. So listeners, sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsas.
Hey there, listeners. Dennis here, and great to have you with another wonderful episode on the Leadership is Changing podcast. And I've got a great guest with me today. His name is Eric King, and Eric is based in Auckland, New Zealand, and just not too far away from me. And it's really quite cool to have you on the show here, Eric. So big welcome to you.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for having me on. This is a beautiful opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, I've already given our listeners a little bit of an introduction to you. Now, what I'd like you to do, though, is share anything else about your background that they might be interested in.
Yeah, so I guess my journey with leadership and a little bit about my background starts at a very young age, where I actually had quite a spiritual upbringing family. And at a young age, I was, taught techniques on meditation, self-reflection, and, I had a heavy influence from my parents on trying to understand purpose, and even got me into doing routines on prayers to connect with the universe and the divine. So I had this sort of influence on me at a very young age. And ever since young, I've always been into high performance sports. Like I played a little bit of badminton for New Zealand when I was younger, did a lot of traveling overseas with that, got into boxing after that, did a few corporate amateur boxing fights as well. So after that, obviously got me into studying a diploma in exercise prescription, because that was obviously my cup of tea growing up. And I started off doing personal training in 2013. And where I first started, it was a very bodybuilding, powerlifting sort of environment. And yeah, so my journey with personal training started there, where I tried the whole bodybuilding and powerlifting lifestyle with the training, with the diet. And in time, I realized that my body was just starting to become a lot more inflamed. It was recovering slower. I started to actually develop a very bad posture. So in 2014, I moved gyms to a more rehab and movement-based gym. And that pretty much opened up my eyes to a whole new world of training and fitness. So moving along, and within that time in my new environment of the new gym, I actually damaged my shoulder so severely that I couldn't put my car into drive. And I remember that moment very clearly, because that for me was like an ego death moment for me. And that from then, where I couldn't put my car into drive, I had to rethink my whole training methods from that day. I had to relearn and recondition a whole lot of my ideas with training and fitness. So pretty much ego death for me. I had to empty my cup and use myself as a guinea pig to upskill myself, heal myself. And then within a couple of months' time, I pretty much turned the page from powerlifting, bodybuilding mentality to movement, rehab, prehab, posture correction sort of based training. And I seemed to did a pretty good job on myself. And then I was noticed as sort of the shoulder rehab specialist in my new gym. And from then on, I guess it just naturally started to come to me where more working professionals, or you can call them, say, desk jockeys that had postural issues, just started to come more into my reality. I started to attract these clients, and through that, pretty much got me into becoming more of a healer. And from that time till now, I guess I've just developed my skills to the point where I understand that the body is a pure reflection of the mind and the spirit. And from there, I've just been connecting the dots and trying to do more in that space and expand it to more people. And from 2021, I guess last year, the mandate happened, and I've just decided to leave Les Mills, the gym that I was with prior, and now I am based in my own gym studio at home, where I provide my services for my clients. And I also have a few professional athletes overseas that see me virtually. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background from past till now.
Yeah, very good. Hey, well, thanks for sharing that, because it's really quite fascinating to hear about your background. And for our listeners who are around the world, Les Mills is a gym that's here in New Zealand. It's quite large, but it's also international as well. And so a very large brand indeed. Now, you mentioned a few things here, actually, Eric, that I want to actually talk about, because one is, well, first of all, you're now got an organization or a business called Eric King Stability Guru. And even just in that, of course, it's got your name in there, but of course, Stability and Guru, which is quite cool. Now, the reason I got you on to the show is really because I want to talk with you today in relation to about that desk jockey side of things. And a lot of people sitting in desks today, working from home and so forth, but also work in the office. And we'll get into that very soon. But you mentioned something called ego death. Now, just for our listeners, can you give a little bit more of an explanation of what you meant by that?
So for me personally, the ego death experience was me surrendering control. So me surrendering my expectations and the outcome, and understanding that my body right now is in pain. So this is my body talking to me right now that whatever that I'm doing is not working, and maybe I need to reset, rest, and reassess my methods moving forward. So ego death for me was really something that I'm on a path still practicing this ego death, because I feel like every single day, people get into routines of breath work, meditation, grounding. That for me is almost like a semi-ego death, where you want to just surrender your control to the day, surrender your control to the universe, and have faith that everything today that is about to happen is laid out in front of you for a reason. And for me, that in that moment of ego death was quite a crucial point for me, because growing up, I've always been a really stubborn-headed person. Like my mother always told me, there's two types of people on earth. Ones that learn easily by just looking at the sign, don't touch, and they will just leave it, not touch it, or the ones that will test the sign, touch it, and realize it's going to burn you. And I'm the kid that will touch and get burnt and learn it the hard way. So I think, to sum it up in a nutshell, ego death for me means surrendering your control and expectations and let universe take the wheel.
Yeah, the way I'm hearing that as well is that, there are things that are in our control and there's things that are out of our control. And really what we need to do is focus on what's in our control and let go of those that are not in our control.
100%.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people's egos might get actually dented or might actually get affected a little bit as well. But sometimes we have to sort of take stock of where we are in life. And life sometimes gives us a little bit of a clue, and sometimes we need to a little bit wake up a little bit. And I think that's where the pandemic around the world actually made us stop and think about life. And actually, we were sent home. All of us were sent home around the world, and just stay there and protect yourselves and things like that. But then what was really quite interesting was it actually made us slow down, and it actually made us sort of think about things, which was really quite cool. But again, I'm not sure whether it was any good around the posture side of things because, sitting on the couch all day, watching Netflix and doing things like that may not have always been good. But, there's all sorts of things. So cool. Thanks for sharing that. Good to know what that meant from your perspective. Now, the other thing too is the mind, the spirit, the body, very important things as well. But I really want to talk about this disc jockey side of things too before we get into some of the other questions as well. Disc jockeys, what do you mean by this? And what are you seeing out there today in the world?
So disc jockeys, that's a term that I used to use for my clients because obviously a lot of mine are in corporate high management roles where they are sitting behind a computer for about 8 to 12 hours a day at least, in boardroom meetings and whatnot. So disc jockeys, like I don't know if you've heard of the saying that sitting down is the new smoking, because that's the thing nowadays that I believe that, we're given this body and the reason for this body, the main functions of it is to move. One of the main things the body is made to do is to walk. And nowadays I feel like the system that we've created has just conditioned the human body to sit down way too much to what we should be. We're out of alignment with how much we should be moving and how much we should be resting. And what that does for the human body is it creates a lot of blockages. And why walking is so healthy for us is because we need circulation. The body needs to circulate with oxygen, with blood. Everything needs to be pumping and circulating for us to stay healthy, for us to have good repair mechanisms, for us to have healthy hormones released in the body. So disc jockeys, if you're sitting in front of the computer or sitting down for more than 8 to 10 hours a day, that's just creating a lot of issues through, say, we can even begin from the feet. The ankles are stuck in a certain position. Your hips, you might be crossing your legs over. Your hips are shifting. Your shoulders starting to slant on one side. You've got the mouse on one arm. So it's creating a lot of imbalances, and it's very detrimental for people's longevity because in time, it does create a lot of pain. And that's the stage where I'm at now with a lot of my clients that are in their 50s that do have the time now and they do have the finances to enjoy life, but they don't have the body to actually enjoy it with because they're either in pain or something, or they have arthritis somewhere, or you know what I mean. It's just that they're full of injuries and inflammation. And that's where I feel like that's where the piece is missing is a lot of people, they want to go and play a game of golf or tennis and they feel like they'll be sacrificing a kneecap just from playing that hour of tennis. And that's not how life should be, to really be happy and flourishing and loving life. You need to have this body to be in tune with what you want to do, to feel light and feel energized, right? To feel optimal. So yeah.
Cool. Well, what do you mean? I know what you mean. What are you talking about? I mean, okay, maybe not. It's okay.
Maybe not you, Dennis.
Yeah, it's all good.
I seen you with the boxing gloves on.
Yeah, it's all good.
Right,
I just
mate.
like having some fun. Yeah, that's all good. Yep. Hey, so a lot of people, listeners, might be now thinking, and they might be thinking, okay, what do you mean? Do I have to go to the gym all the time? Do I have to do this? Well, you mentioned just walking. I mean, something is better than nothing, right?
Yeah, something is better than nothing. Like, it's just about finding your sweet spot. I think that's the key of life is you don't want to go too much to the left. You don't want to go too much to the right. It's about finding that sweet spot, finding that balance. And everybody's balance is different. Everybody's lifestyle is different. Everybody's schedules are different. So, something like you say, something is better than nothing. And a step forward is always better than waiting for perfect. So that's what I always try to encourage people is like, even if it's a 20, 30-minute walk, just to get your heart racing a little bit more than what it usually is sitting at, even that is enough to start giving some circulation, some blood flow. Through that, you're going to start releasing your happy hormones, your endorphins, your dopamine, all of that stuff is going to slowly come out. And that's what I try to encourage people is, when we try to think about fitness and making a change, you need to remind yourself, baby steps, eat the elephant one bite at a time. You don't have to give yourself these massive goals and set yourself up to fail. A step at a time. I always say the first step is always the hardest step. But once you take that first step, the second, the third, the fourth will naturally start to flow for you.
Awesome. I love it. You actually said something else as well before, that a step forward is better than perfect. Now, I think that's relevant for not only what you're just talking about, but also anything that we do in life. Because there's a lot of people who don't want to start something, don't want to go and do something. A step forward is better than perfect. Love that. And you're right. The first step, then the second step, third, fourth, and that. Time-wise, because a lot of people say I don't have enough time. Do they have to spend a lot of time doing this each day? And is it every day?
But then again, that's within perception, isn't it? You know, we all have 24 hours in a day, and people that say I don't have time, I go, well, is it important? Right? Because
it's about priorities, really, isn't it?
It's about priority. It's about priority. And I just try to encourage people and remind them that, you know, exercising is not a luxury. It should be a priority. Your health is not a luxury. It should be a priority.
Excellent. Well, Eric, that's some really cool stuff that you're sharing there already into the show, into this episode. Now, you mentioned a little bit before about the leadership side of things, but how did you actually get into leadership?
So, to be honest, I feel like leadership found me. Leadership found me, especially with my job as a personal trainer. It's quite natural for us to help somebody or support somebody get to a place where they thought they never could have gone to or achieved. So I would say that leadership found me through personal training, because I'm honestly so blessed to be doing what I'm doing, because when you're helping an individual with their physical well-being through exercise, it can build trust.
Yeah.
When people trust you, when they trust you, they start to show vulnerability. And when they start to show vulnerability, it means they trust you and they're ready to heal. When people show vulnerability, whether it's through a conversation, whether it's through an exercise, it means they're ready to heal. And I feel like as a personal trainer or anybody that has the wisdom or the eye to see somebody that is in pain, I feel like we have the responsibility to try and listen, to try and support them. And that's the thing I feel like most PTs can now relate to when I say this is 60% of the session, I would say, is you're a therapist, you're a counselor. You know, 40% of the time you're just getting their bodies moving, getting them going. And a lot of the times when they rest within that minute break, man, things come out. And for us, we have to take it in and try to bounce back some sort of positivity for them, if that's needed. Or most of the time, they just need somebody to listen.
Yep.
So I think naturally we are all leaders within our own rights as well. You know, we have responsibility of being a leader in our own families, you know, in our own friend environments, within our colleagues, in our work environment, in society. So I feel like, you know, being blessed with the position that I'm in now, I feel like I am a pretty decent healer, and I know this saying, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. So yeah, in a nutshell, I feel like I've been very blessed to be in this position, and I do believe, you know, we have leadership inside of all of us, and through this career, through this job, has just sparked up my fire.
Yeah, cool. I actually have been observing you for a few years, actually, at the local gym where I've been sometimes, where I actually go there and actually seeing you, actually, when I was doing my warm-ups and beforehand, the stretching and afterwards as well, and you would be in the area whereby you're working with your clients, but the way that you were handling them in the sense of looking after them and working with them and things like that, I think was really, really cool to see. So well done on that. And I think that is actually sharing, you know, I could actually see you talking to some of your colleagues as well, and probably sharing some best practices and around things like that too. So leading in that perspective as well, for sure. Now, Eric, here's a question that's going to be really quite interesting for you. Now, this person can be alive or from history. Who's your favorite leader and why?
Oh, well, I don't know if I have one from history, but I have a couple of leaders that I do admire that are alive at the moment. So I'll start with number one, Jay Shetty. So this guy, Jay Shetty, his mission is to make wisdom go viral. And he's quite big on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I've been following him for quite a while as well, and I love what he's doing. Preston Smiles, he's another one that I really admire. He's promoting the message of love, unity, and connection to the divine within. You know, I love that, because this is the space that we're transitioning into. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, another one. I'm sorry, I've got a few, Dennis. Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's another one that I really admire as well, because he is showing the power of spirit through science. You know, he is measuring spirituality through science, through the power of breath, through the power of meditation, and your thoughts on how that can heal and prevent virus penetration into the cells. Like, I find that super, super interesting. Another one that I really admire is obviously Mr. Tony Robbins, the Yoda of the wellness space. So I've actually attended one of his UPW events, and that for me was pretty crazy exposure on just, man, how good he is with patterns, how good he is at controlling energy and influence. And I just love his message. I love his message with just spreading love and truth again to the world, and spreading grace.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's all? There's no more?
No, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
That's very good.
That's it. Yeah.
So I've got another question around this too, Eric, and this question is one whereby choose one of the four that you've actually just shared. One of the four. If you were to sit on a park bench with one of them, having a coffee, what would be one question you want to ask them? So tell us which one it is first, and then tell us what question.
I think it would be with Jay Shetty.
He's got a new book just came out, eh?
Yeah, I'm not actually too sure. I haven't been following.
I saw it yesterday yesterday on Saturday, I think, or Friday at the bookstore. It was awesome.
Okay, what is the title of that one?
I remember. Beautiful blue cover with his face on it. Really cool. It's definitely in the top 100, so it's really good to check out.
I think it would be with Jay Shetty, and the question I'll ask him is just, when was the moment that he realized that he had to pack his bags and go and become a monk? What was the last straw for him to realize that this was his mission? That I had to give up my life, my old conditioning here in city life, pack my bags and go and devote myself into a monastery to become a monk, to chase wisdom. I would ask him, what was the tipping point for him to turn the page on that?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because that for me is very courageous. That for me takes immense faith and an immense courage to just block out the noise. Family, friends, you have to block it all out and do you. So I think that would be the question that I ask. And how did you draw strength to make those actions?
Yep. Great questions. Yeah, very good. Very good. Now, the show's called Leadership is Changing. When I mentioned that show title or statement, what does it mean for Eric?
So leadership is changing. I think for me personally, it's to be ready to adapt. Be ready to adapt and constantly seek for improvements. I think that would be number one. Because however the world is changing, we can't predict what's coming. And we just need to be ready to adapt with it and try to improve our skills and try to stay grounded, because I feel like there's going to be more and more distractions that are going to surface, more influences that are going to try and pull leaders astray off their own path. So I think it's just, staying grounded and be more involved with teams and community also. I feel like we're in a time where there's a lot of separation. There's a lot of separation, and I feel like community, being a part of a team and teaming up with other like-minded leaders is very important. I mean, there's 8 billion of us here on Earth, and I feel like we need to all band together in order to make this change, to make this global change. And the time is now. So I feel like what it means for me is to adapt, constantly seek for improvements, and be more involved with teams and other like-minded leaders.
Yeah, very good. I love that. I love that indeed. And be ready to adapt and seek for improvement. Love it. I think that's really quite cool, because I think that's where we can learn definitely a lot more about each other and about where we're going as well. And you're right. I think there's going to be a lot more disruption. There's going to be a lot more things going faster, because we do know that there is one thing that's constant in the world today, and that is change, right? And that's definitely what's happening. Now, just talking about that and talking about things going faster, whether it be in health and fitness, things are getting faster. Technology, I think technology is driving a little bit. Social data, the whole lot is getting a lot faster. Based on what you've been sharing so far and your other thoughts around this, what do you think a leader might need to do to be successful in today's fast-paced, ever-changing world?
So I think a leader needs to, first, I feel like the leader needs to eat their own medicine. We need to be able to walk the walk first before we can talk the talk. So a lot of that for myself, there's a lot of things that are moving really fast outside of me, but what can I do to keep my internal world, my internal energy grounded in more of a grounded, slower pace?
Yes.
And hence why I have these blocks that I've created in my own routine, my weekly lifestyle, that I've created barriers that will keep me aligned with my mission. For example, like my MMA, my training that I do, the breath work, my morning routines that I do. All of that stuff is to protect me from going astray and keeping my mind cleansed, keeping my mind clear, just so I can see clearly going forward. To add on to that, I feel like leaders now, whichever space that you're in, empathy and sympathy is so powerful, and it goes a long way. Being able to put yourself in another person's shoe, it's a lot easier said than done, because that's the thing with the ego, right? It's very loud. It likes to criticize. It likes to judge people. So I think for leaders to be successful today is sincerely being able to listen, and to put your ego aside, knowing that this is going to benefit the collective, the whole, rather than just me being right.
Yeah.
You see that, because that's the kind of the story and the theme that I've been hearing this year, specifically in the corporate space, is there's a lot of disputes, there's a lot of ego in the boardrooms, there's a lot of politics going on where it's not necessarily benefiting the whole unit.
Yeah.
And a leader who doesn't just talk and paint you a picture, when a leader shows vulnerability, we need to follow through as well. We need to follow through, and that goes back to me saying we need to walk the walk before we can talk the talk.
Nice.
And yeah. I think that sums it up for me there.
Yeah, that's very good. And I think, listeners, what we're hearing here is that Eric's actually mentioned a few times today about the breathing side of things. I think definitely that's one thing that we need to do, is to breathe, especially when your back's up against the wall or you're up against something that it's maybe a little bit stressed. Don't forget to breathe. I think that's really important. The other thing I'd like what you just said here, Eric, was about creating some blocks. And I think maybe what I'm hearing that is that putting some boundaries. In other words, this is my area, what I need to do around health. This is what I need to do around something else, and having some boundaries, but not allow other things to interfere with that boundary, and making sure that you've got that block that you've created and you're actually dedicating that time for that kind of space. Would that be right?
Yeah, 100%. That's it.
Yeah, cool. Now, Eric, I know that you've been talking to a lot of your clients and other people that you know as well, who are today employees of organizations or businesses and things like that. So let's change lens, or let's change gear a little bit. In other words, we've been talking about leadership and leaders. Now let's talk about from an employee's perspective. How has employees' expectations of leaders changed?
So in my world at the moment, the theme, like I said, that I've been hearing this year from the people that I talk to is the employees feel like they don't have full transparency and honesty from their employers. They feel like there's a little bit of lack of trust, lack of communication, and I feel like most people nowadays are walking on eggshells. They feel like they're walking on eggshells, and they don't know what's going on, or what the transitioning is actually what sort of transition is actually happening. I know companies have had restructures, whole departments fired due to the pandemic and whatnot. So I feel like what I've been hearing this year is really just more full transparency and honesty. And they feel like instead of just expecting and demanding at the top, they're feeling like the leaders nowadays need to kind of pave the way, and from my background, I mean, I've always been a contractor, but I can say something from when I was working in Les Mills, where our club manager, I feel like, really exceeded himself as a good role model of a good leader. Yeah. Because he was always the first one in, always the last one out. And that to me spoke a lot of volume about his character. And that's true leadership in my eyes. Somebody that can hold themselves emotionally as well when they're in kind of group outing environments with the team. Sometimes in a social environment, I know some leaders don't like attending social environments because they don't like to hear what people have to say after a couple of drinks or whatnot. But our club manager attended every single one of those and held space for us. Held space. That's the main thing that I'm getting at with right now, is a leader that can hold space. A leader that has enough emotional intelligence to know that this is not how I should see them at face value, and really start to see their employees as people rather than just employees, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, it does. And when you say hold space, in other words, give them enough space to be them as human beings, as people.
Yeah, definitely. So don't judge them at face value.
Right.
Don't judge them at face value. To understand the way that they're displaying themselves now, maybe because there's something that's going on at home. There might be something deeper going on, and that's why what they're displaying right now might be a little bit out of alignment with the atmosphere.
Yeah, excellent.
So just, having that compassion.
Yeah, that's very good. Nice. I like it. A leader that can hold the space, or hold space full stop. Yes, I think a leader that's always first in and last, that is the leader. That is definitely the person as well. Yeah, very good. Now, Eric, here's something I want you to get your crystal ball out and think about the future here. Where do you see leadership being in 5 years?
Oh, where do I see leadership going in 5 years? This is a tricky one. I feel like how leadership is delivered, whether it's through a single person, an individual, or a group of people like a council, their religion needs to be love and compassion. I feel like this is it, is we're experiencing such a dark time that we're now realizing that the system that we've created is slowly crumbling. It's not working anymore. You know, what we've experienced in the past has created too much separation. So I feel like leadership in 5 years' time, whatever it is, whoever it is, they need to value love and compassion. I feel like that's, underneath all the superficial stuff, all the materials, everything that's going on, I feel like this is the space that we all need to slowly move into as our own individual leaders as well. You know, being our own leaders for our own families, we need more love and compassion in the world.
Yeah. Because
I feel like when we have more love and compassion, and if a leader, whether political, whether you're a leader of a whole country, of the world, if we can all come back to this, what we are truly in essence, love and compassion, then we can experience the gift of life together and even more abundant of it. Because when we realize that we are one, and there was no need for aggressive hierarchy, there is no need for this unsustainable financial system. Everybody has a gift, everybody has a skill, everybody has something that they're better at than somebody else. And if we can just support everybody to find that magic, I feel like the world will be in a much better place.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well done, man. I think that's really, really cool. Very, very good.
Yeah, because again, another thing that I've been dealing with my space of working with clients as well this year, a lot of it is dealing with people's traumas, you know, and a lot of people talk about inner child work nowadays and all that sort of stuff. And that's what it comes down to is why are we so traumatized? Why is everybody's inner child so lacking love? It's because of the system, this fast-paced world that we've created, and there's not enough love and compassion.
Yeah. Right. Very good. Now, Eric, if our listeners are wanting to get a hold of you, where should they go?
So they can find me on LinkedIn, or they can find me on Instagram. You can just type in Eric King, and I should pop up at the very top.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, we'll put those links into the show notes. But Eric, once again, hey, I want to say to you, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you in relation to Leadership is Changing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate what you're doing. And we're going to do it together.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, listeners. Hey, there it goes. There's a wonderful another episode of the Leadership is Changing podcast with Eric King. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.